At precisely 11:38 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on that fateful January morning in 1986, the countdown at Kennedy Space Center reached its final seconds. Millions of viewers across the nation had gathered in front of their televisions, their hearts beating in unison with the rhythmic beeps of the countdown. Amid the palpable excitement and hope for human progress, the Space Shuttle Challenger, its bold red and white exterior gleaming in the early winter light, stood poised to carry a legacy of ambition into the unknown. Every camera angle captured the faces of dedicated crew members and the towering rocket that symbolized decades of hard-won scientific achievement. In the moments just before ignition, a quiet tension had begun to creep into the mission control room. In one corner, a lone engineer studied critical data with a growing sense of unease. His furrowed brow and hesitant glances toward his colleagues hinted at an anomaly, something that didn't quite add up. Deep within him, there was a nagging worry that the familiar routine might be masking a hidden flaw, one that could shatter the long-held belief in the invincibility of modern engineering. Yet, as the world outside buzzed with anticipation, these quiet warnings were lost in the collective hope of witnessing history. For those few seconds leading up to the ignition sequence, a mix of silence and expectation prevailed in both the control center and countless living rooms across America. The crew, including Krista McAuliffe, the teacher destined to bring space directly into the classroom, followed their pre-launch routines with precise determination. To them, this launch was not just another mission. It was a chance to inspire millions, a tangible connection between everyday dreams and the vast mysteries of the universe. Their faces, illuminated by the glow of instrument panels, reflected both resolve and the quiet weight of responsibility. As the engines roared to life, a surge of raw energy filled the air at the launch pad. The Challenger began its ascent with an almost graceful determination, climbing steadily into the wide blue sky. For the first minute, the launch appeared flawless, an orchestration of technology and human effort working in perfect harmony. A brilliant trail of flame and smoke was etched against the cold morning sky, a testament to human ingenuity and the promise of exploration. However, hidden beneath this awe-inspiring display was an ominous flaw in the O-ring seals of the solid rocket boosters, a vulnerability that had been raised in hushed conversations but ultimately dismissed amid mounting optimism. Then, at exactly 73 seconds after liftoff, time seemed to shudder and come to a standstill. In one heart-stopping instant, the unthinkable happened. The Challenger disintegrated in a violent burst of fire and shrapnel, sending fragments of metal and shattered dreams spiraling into the indifferent air. The live broadcast captured every harrowing detail. The sudden, blinding flash of flames, twisting trails of smoke that writhed like anguished serpents, and the shocking dispersal of what had once symbolized human progress. For millions of viewers, that moment transformed the familiar celebration of technology into a nightmare that would haunt the national psyche for generations. Inside Mission Control, chaos erupted almost immediately. The room filled with frantic voices as engineers and technicians who had devoted countless hours to the success of the mission were forced to confront an unfolding disaster. Screens that had once displayed a carefully monitored ascent now flashed erratic data. Alarms blared in a desperate cacophony, each beep a stark reminder that everything had gone terribly wrong. In that single shattering moment, years of meticulous planning and unwavering optimism collapsed into a void of devastation, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and unhealed wounds. Across the nation, living rooms turned into quiet memorials. Parents hurried to shield their children from the horrifying images, while others sat transfixed in disbelief, unable to tear their eyes away from the tragedy unfolding on their screens. The television, once a window into shared national pride, had become a mirror reflecting the fragile limits of human ambition. In that instant, the optimistic vision of reaching for the stars was brutally replaced by a stark reminder of human vulnerability and the unforgiving reality of technological risk. And as shock and grief spread, a haunting question began to emerge. How could such a critical warning have been ignored? In the days and weeks that followed, the nation was engulfed in a wave of mourning and inquiry. Leaders, scientists, and and ordinary citizens alike found themselves grappling with the enormity of the loss. Investigations were launched with an urgency born of collective despair. As panels of experts, comprising engineers, policymakers, and NASA representatives, gathered to reconstruct every moment leading up to the disaster. They meticulously combed through technical schematics, analyzed reams of communication transcripts, and revisited the decision-making processes that had led to that fateful launch. Every minute detail was scrutinized in the hope of understanding how a mission built on decades of expertise could collapse in such a devastating fashion. As the technical analysis unfolded, it became painfully clear that the disaster was not an isolated, unforeseeable event. Instead, it was the tragic culmination of long-standing issues that had been brushed aside despite persistent warnings. The O-ring seals, those small yet critical components designed to contain immense pressure, had shown signs of vulnerability under the unusually cold conditions of that January morning. Detailed studies revealed that these seals were prone to failure when exposed to temperatures far below normal operational levels. A risk that had been known but underestimated by decision-makers who felt compelled to proceed with the launch. The revelation sparked intense debates about risk management, the pressures of meeting deadlines, and the internal culture that sometimes stifled dissent in the face of overwhelming ambition. As more evidence came to light, the investigation uncovered hints of internal conflicts and unspoken pressures within NASA. Several engineers had voiced concerns in private meetings and confidential reports, only to have their warnings dismissed or downplayed by higher-ups eager to maintain the schedule and public image. These revelations opened a Pandora's box of questions about accountability, transparency, and the true cost of human error. Whispers of neglected maintenance, overlooked anomalies, and bureaucratic inertia began to circulate, each one adding a layer of complexity to an already heart-wrenching story. The inquiry, intended to provide closure, instead raised more questions than it answered, a series of cliffhangers that left many wondering if the full truth would ever be revealed. Personal accounts from those who witnessed the disaster continue to resonate with a deep, painful clarity. Veterans of the space program and ordinary citizens alike remember that day not just as a technical failure, but as a profound moment of human loss. A retired engineer from Kennedy Space Center recalled it as the day our shared dream of exploration shattered, when every calculation and every plan was rendered meaningless by the overwhelming forces of nature. Teachers who once saw the promise of space as a beacon for the future were left grappling with the stark reminder that even the grandest ambitions come with the risk of heartbreak. In the quiet moments of reflection, many still ask, could this tragedy have been prevented if only the warnings had been heeded? The media's portrayal of the Challenger disaster evolved over time, as did public perceptions of the event. Initially, raw, unfiltered footage of the explosion was broadcast live, etching the horror into the collective memory of a nation. In the years that followed, documentaries and retrospective analyses revisited that footage, prompting ongoing debates about the ethics of showing such raw images and the psychological impact they had on viewers. Scholars and journalists dissected the broadcast, examining how the unrelenting replay of the tragedy contributed to an enduring sense of loss and caution. Even as time passed, new angles and previously overlooked details began to emerge, clues that hinted at a more complex story lying just beneath the surface of that tragic day. Beyond the technical failures and investigative reports, the Challenger disaster sparked a broader dialogue about the nature of progress and the human cost of innovation. It forced society to confront a painful paradox. Every time we reach for the stars, we expose ourselves to the risks and uncertainties inherent in defying nature's limits. The tragedy became a powerful symbol of the delicate balance between our highest aspirations and our most basic vulnerabilities. It challenged engineers, policymakers, and everyday citizens to rethink what true progress means when measured not just in technological milestones, but in the lives and dreams that are inevitably put on the line. In the aftermath of the disaster, sweeping reforms were introduced. Engineers and scientists, determined to honor the memory of those lost, overhauled testing protocols and instituted stringent safety measures. Independent oversight committees were formed to ensure that every minor warning was thoroughly examined, and a new culture of transparency and accountability began to take root within NASA. These changes were not merely technical fixes. They represented a fundamental shift in mindset. Every subsequent mission carried with it the silent weight of Challenger's legacy, a reminder that progress is never without sacrifice, and that every step forward must be taken with caution. The human stories interwoven with this tragedy are as complex as they are heartbreaking. Families of the lost crew, friends, and colleagues have carried the weight of that day for decades. Memorial services and quiet gatherings have become annual rituals, not only to mourn, but also to celebrate the courage and passion that drove those brave souls to reach for the stars. In classrooms across the country, the Challenger disaster is taught as a somber lesson in both engineering and ethics. A vivid example of how even our most celebrated achievements are vulnerable to the unpredictable forces of nature and human oversight. As the years have passed, the legacy of the Challenger has continued to evolve, challenging every new generation to learn from the past. The story of that tragic day is often revisited in discussions about innovation, risk, and the true meaning of progress. Even as new technologies emerge and humanity's ambitions grow bolder, the memory of the Challenger serves as a constant reminder. Every breakthrough carries with it the potential for profound loss. And while the quest for knowledge and exploration pushes us ever forward, we are forever bound by the lessons of that day. Lessons that remind us to balance our dreams with a deep respect for the fragile nature of life. In quiet moments of reflection, as engineers prepare for new missions, and as ordinary citizens go about their lives, the unanswered questions of that January morning still linger. What if the warnings had been heeded? Could a different choice have saved lives and altered the course of history? These lingering mysteries continue to provoke debate and inspire deeper investigation. The Challenger disaster is not just a chapter in the annals of space exploration. It is an ongoing story, a complex narrative filled with unresolved questions and quiet, persistent echoes of the past. And as each new mission takes flight, the shadow of that day serves as both a warning and a call to honor the delicate balance between human ambition and the ever-present risk of tragedy. Thank you for your patience and engagement. I hope this reflection has provided insight into the complex legacy of the Challenger disaster and the deep lessons it continues to offer. This is Freak Files channel that bring dark history horror story to life via documentary. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's most pivotal moments, please subscribe and join our community of truth seekers. And remember, every file holds a key to the past that shapes our future.